Welcome to a little Yin Yang Flow. So I like to do the yin up front. So you might have some yoga blocks at your house, and you could, for your butterfly, put a block under each of your knees if you want to. I like something a little softer. So like a couple of little throw pillows make really excellent yoga props. You can also sit up on the edge of one, and then you want your sit bones to be right on the edge. If you sit up on a block or a blanket or a bolster, you don't want to sit so that it's your butt is in the center of it. You want to sit so that the edge of your sit bones goes right on the edge of whatever you're sitting on. That almost acts to tilt your pelvis forward automatically. So it kind of takes some of the pressure away from the low back if your pelvis tends to go backwards rather than forwards in these shapes. So you can have a really big diamond, which is my preference, or you can pull the feet in tighter if you like it that way. And then we're just going to settle into kind of a long shape. We're going to stay here for about 4 minutes. Just letting the breath happen, letting the mind drop whatever little, sometimes you've got an agenda for your day or whatever. You can let go of all those little bits. We'll just try to get, essentially what we're doing with yin is we're more trying to hydrate the tissue than we are necessarily trying to really tug on it. And so we want to find the point where we just feel sensation. So just a little sensation in the inner thighs, a little sensation through the back of the hip, through the spine. And then pause in that place and breathe. You can add a little conscious movement, like lean to one side a little bit more for a breath or two, and then the other. It doesn't have to remain perfectly static. You just don't want it to be fidgety or nervous. So if it feels fidgety or nervous, that's usually the way that your nervous system tells you that you're going too far. Or it could be that your nervous system is just really amped up. And because there's lots of reasons for that to be true right now. And what you may do instead is really focus on that breath. Nice, deep, smooth breaths. So we're about halfway through here. In my regular life, I like to practice with music. I don't like to play music through the internet because, copyright. And I want to make sure people get paid for their creations. But if you have some music on in the background, that might be helpful for kind of helping your energy level, kind of starting out slow and easy with a pose like this, and then allowing the music to kind of get a little more peppy when you want to move a little bit more. We're in our last minute. Or you can, if you're doing this quietly, you can pay attention to the sound of the breath. There's a breath practice called Ujjayi, where you just let the breath rattle through the vocal cords enough that it sounds like that sound when you hold a seashell against your ear. Just a little bit of an ocean sound. And that sound of the breath is really lovely for rooting you in. So we're going to take 2 more of those. So inhaling yourself up, and I just roll up slowly as I fill up with breath. And then kind of let yourself lean back and adjust the legs out to a straight position. And then take a few moments. So we're going to come into a Sphinx. But before we get to that Sphinx pose, you can take a moment to sort of rinse your back. Oh. You could do some little cat shapes on your hands and knees if you like. And then we'll find a little Sphinx. Now, if you are not familiar with the Sphinx, it's sort of like a propped up cobra. So you're going to lay on your belly. Oh. And sometimes for me, going from that one shape to the other is tricky. So that little bit of movement first is helpful. And then you'll adjust so that your elbows are in a position that feel like they mostly just kind of support you. If my elbows are too tight in, it feels like my shoulders want to come up around my head. If my elbows are too far forward, it feels like I'm just going to collapse. So I find a spot where they are a little bit forward of my shoulder, slightly more in for me. It might be wider for you. And then my shoulder blades pretty much just stay put on my back. Now you can push this up onto your hands if that's better for you, or you can come down a little lower and prop your chin on your wrist or your forehead on your wrist, as the case may be. So you can let yourself hang out there. That's the crocodile version. But just kind of feeling this out. So we're going to stay here for just another minute. It's not a long one because we're going to add our frogs in case you want to get amphibious. I'm pretty sure I'm using that word wrong. Okay, so take a big breath. And let go within. And we're going to lean over to one hip and bring the other leg up like that so that you've got like a little froggy looking leg. You can tuck the toes back a little more, or you can stick the toes out a little bit more. That'll just depend on your preference. And then I try to let this part of my hip really soften toward the floor. Your hip might be tilted more to the side or less to the side than mine is. That's not really important. What's important is that you're finding the range of motion that works for you. Now, sometimes I like to, along the way, holding this pose, kind of give myself this little movement in the back. Some people even may want to hold on to that foot with their hand, and that's okay too. Now, you can stay with that Sphinx shape, or you can come down lower. My favorite thing is to take a pillow or a bolster and make the upper body just kind of give your upper body a little place to land. It's not particularly conducive to microphone wearing, but hopefully that'll work okay. Okay. So we're going to stay for about 2 more minutes here. Just releasing the hip and the quad on the back leg by letting the little movement happen there, or just relaxing. Nice deep breaths. So with the yin yang, we're going to stay for 1 more minute, but I like to really try to feel the different qualities in these two halves or aspects of the Tao. The Tao in Chinese philosophy is the sort of way of articulating experience. So there really is only one thing. There's one energy, one creative force in the universe. But that is so all-encompassing that it's impossible to articulate. It's impossible to describe. And so what we normally experience in our lives is a more duality, difference of light and dark and hard and soft and that sort of jazz. And so the yin is the softer, more giving, more, receiving is probably a better word for it, but the more sort of allowing aspect. So you're going to take a big breath. We're going to roll to this hip on the other side, and we're going to straighten that leg out and give it a little rinse. Oh. Shoo. Now, while we're here, we're going to do this little sleeping Buddha shoulder stretch. I did it last night too, but I love it. And so we'll do it here in case you missed last night's class. So I'm sticking my arm out. Now, this is the leg that I just had in the frog. So I want the opposite arm. I like my palm up most of the time. Sometimes I find palm down is better. So you're going to experiment. So you're going to take your frog leg, take it over the top. Okay. Now, adjust your shoulder. And you can let your head rest on the floor, or you can take the pillow or the block that you might have handy. This leg can stay just like that, or you can extend that leg out. You can extend this leg forward if you like. Mostly we're just using the legs to hold us in place. If you feel any pressure in your shoulder that feels sharp or shooting, or you get numbness or tingling in your arm bone's not in the right spot. So you're going to readjust. And we're going to try to stay here for about another, like a minute and 45 seconds. So a little shorter time with this stretch. And again, we're trying to embody this quality in the yin part of this class of really just letting go and trying not to hold ourselves too tightly. Try to embody softness, and through softness, that kind of power of like gently over time making change. The way the Colorado River eventually carved a huge canyon in the Southwest. That kind of power. Super soft. Oh. Hey, sweetie. So we're almost there. So we've got about 2 breaths of just hanging out here. Nice big inhale. And then you're going to gently, with your exhale, just bring yourself back. Oh. And when you get back, take a moment and rinse that arm off. Rinse it off. Rinse it out. I probably should find other metaphors. But in any case... Oh, you can chalk that one up to strange things yoga teachers say. I'm sure there's a nice list going. At least I have a good list. All right, so we're going to do the other side. I'm going to turn this way so it's a little easier to see. We're going to do that frog. Kind of take that leg out. And again, you're just going to kind of feel out, is it okay to extend this leg? Do I like this leg bent now and again? I like a little bit of both. Give yourself something to recline onto, or prone onto, as the case may be. And then allowing that softness in the hip. Maybe the leg kicks out, maybe the leg kicks in. And we'll stay for a bit. Take a nice deep breaths. Allowing yourself to just essentially sink into gravity. These poses, I find, sometimes don't feel like they're doing anything, but when it's over, there's this really great sense of ease and softness, and hydration, most importantly in the hip socket. One of the things that's really interesting about some of the, probably last decade worth of understanding of how anatomy works is because of laparoscopic surgery, we've discovered, I wasn't involved, but scientists have discovered that there is a layer of hyaluronic acid, and essentially a fluid layer right underneath the fascia that lives under the skin. And then in places where muscles touch each other, there are, where those fascial layers meet, there's layers of fluid there. So there are like little riverbeds, little fluid layers of hyaluronic acid, which attracts water. So hyaluronic acid and water in our body. And so when you go in with with the little camera, they can see all this. When you cut someone open, that fluid layer disappears, right? And so part of the trouble with the science that we normally have had in the West is this, cadaver research, or by, the information that we've learned through surgeries. It wasn't until we, put a camera in to the tissue that we could really see what was going on. And that's fascinating. And also it's led to some interesting kind of changes in understanding of how stretching works and whether it has any efficacy at all. And I'm telling you guys this story. We're going to stay for one more minute. But anyway, one of the things that's really interesting, kind of cutting edge right now in terms of physical therapy, is understanding how fascia and hydration of tissue works. So when we hold the superficial fascia or the deeper fascial layers in a traction, in a stretch for a period of time, and potentially also holding that stretch while doing a little gentle movement, there seems to be a hydrating impact. It increases the amount of hyaluronic acid that lives in that tissue, encourages the connective tissue to produce more of it, and then thus it hydrates. So we get more fluid under the tissue, in between layers, and also in the joints themselves. So that's pretty great. So we're going to take 2 more breaths. And I definitely would suggest that, at least in terms of my own experience from doing yoga and yin in particular, it definitely feels that way to me. It's also possible that I'm highly suggestible. So we're going to roll to the hip. We're going to let this thing go. Oh, give that a little movement. And then we're going to do this other arm. So we're going to take this arm out to the side. I'm going to start by taking this leg over the top. And then I'm going to fiddle with my shoulder placement and my arm placement. Sometimes a bent elbow is better than a straighter arm. Sometimes bringing the arm down closer to your hip is better. And so you're just going to find your way in. You might extend your leg back or extend this leg out. You might keep both knees bent. So again, I'm not being too pushy. I'm just allowing myself to find that spot where I feel some sensation across the top of my shoulder and the front of the chest. This is one of my favorite stretches to do if I've been on my sewing machine for a really long time, or leaning over a desk or my computer. My desk is my couch. So when I'm on my laptop, I'm in a coiled up, almost embryonic, like really super curled up state, leaning into the computer with all my brain. So this is super helpful. Hopefully it is for you too. Okay, we got about another minute and 45 seconds. We're almost halfway through. And you can do whatever you want with this top arm. I like to put it up front just because it helps me kind of hold steady. But you could wrap it over your back if that feels better. Or put it over your head. That might be nice. So it's our last minute here. So we're going to take a nice big breath. Let go with a big deep. Oh. All right, so we're going to take the top leg and bring it around. Oh, we're going to release the pressure off that arm and then give that arm some movement. Oh. All right, so that's the straight up yin portion of what we're going to do. Now what we're going to do is we're going to slowly start to kind of add ourselves into the yang end of this. So yang is the opposite of yin in the Tao. But here's the thing about the Tao. I don't know if you've ever looked at that symbol, which is often called the yin yang symbol, but in any case, it is like a little white section, a little black section, but inside each of those sections, there's the dot of the other. So they are constantly changing and giving birth to one another. So as we change from this kind of more steady, longer hold into these movement patterns in the body, and by the way, come to all fours and move your back around in different ways, we're going to start to kind of get into this notion of the movement so that there's more active principle. And we're going to try to get movement going in almost every tissue in the body. So we're taking the shoulder blades up and down. We're moving the hips and the ribs and the spine. Okay, so bring one leg forward. You can start with either leg. And we're going to come into a lunge. And we're going to let this lunge be a little bit mobile. So we're going to take the hips forward and a little bit backward. If you need more padding under your knee, put padding under your knee. And then come back to this. So go forward, feeling the stretch across the front of the hip. Go backward. You might even start to feel your hamstring stretch there. Come forward. Come backward. Now we're going to go forward and we're going to stay with a lunge. And my lunge can be up here, more like a crescent. I can create more of the crescent with my arms. Or if I'm feeling a little bit more like getting a little closer to the ground, I can put a hand or even an elbow on the floor. Because the knee in the back is on the ground instead of in the air, I can move this leg without causing too much trouble. So I might wing that leg back and forth. Oh. Right? And you might even want to reach back and grab that foot at some point. So last breath here. And then we're going to ease the hips back and see how far we can go until we feel that stretch in the hamstring. So I'm going to bring the toes up and then I'm going to point them. So I get a little bit of change, calf muscle, more shin. I'm going to stay more static with my torso, but you could also come out and go in. So just changing the stretch a little bit, adding that little bit of movement, that feeling of yang. Power through action. Okay, so now we're going to bring ourselves back to that all fours position. Give ourselves a little bit of movement here. I'm going to walk slightly more forward on my mat so that I can feel whether there is a difference in one hip versus the other. Coming back to my little cat rolls, ups and downs, side to sides, looking over the shoulders. Oh. And then bring your opposite leg forward. And we're going to come back to that lunge idea. So once I get myself steady, I'm going to move forward and back. And again, exploring forward and back. Maybe doing a slightly different version for this next one. And then we're going to come forward nice and slow. Feel yourself find the lunge. And whether that lunge is going to stay more upright or is going to get closer to the ground. And then is there going to be some form of movement here? That's interesting to explore. Again, we want to move slow enough that we really can feel the potential ramifications of our choices and the benefits. So again, we're sliding the hips back, and it might be that you add a little movement just with the ankle, or you might add a little movement with your whole body or the torso. And one more breath. Ooh, and then we're going to come on back to all fours. And one more time, give yourself a chance to just pause with this cat shape and feel the fallout, the benefits, the sensation changes that we've experienced with our little lunge sequence. So you're going to bring your elbows to the ground. I like to lace my fingers together, and then I tuck the little bottom pinkies in so that there's not a pinky getting kind of pressed down, but more I'm kind of using both fingers together. You're going to tuck your toes and lift your hips up. Now this is a dolphin, and we're going to pull the hips back and then surf forward and pull back. And surf forward and pull back. And surf forward and pull back. Now, lift your hips if you need to, bend your knees, and we're going to try to get ourselves all the way back. Try to get your head all the way through your arms. Sorry about the mic being so close. And then, the hamstrings might feel extra love. All right, so then we're going to come down. And we'll give ourselves a chance to move the shoulders around a little bit and just sort of see how that landed us. Now, we're going to go to a dolphin's cousin, which is downward facing dog. So now straighter arms. Put your hands on the floor nice and firm. Spread your fingers out. Take your hips back and feel yourself lengthen back and come in. Lengthen back and come in. Lengthen back. Now get the shoulders on your back and press your heels towards the ground. Lift your hips up as best you can. Bend your knees if that helps your hamstrings. Take your left leg up and reaching out through that leg, we're going to bring it up over the back and then step it forward. Now wiggle your legs into place so that you can come into a warrior one. We're going to angle that more towards the front. So if you can angle your toes a little more in, that's going to be helpful. And then we're going to come up. Now press this foot into the ground and let the hip go with the leg, so that we're not trying to get the knee or the hip to do anything that's not lined up. Turn the ribs forward and let the hip go. Some people can square their hip forward more, some of us can't. So we work with what we've got. Now, we're going to do this movement with the arms that I just demonstrated. Push your hands forward, turn the palms so they face up, bring the arms up, and you can add a little more of a back bend there, and then pull the elbows towards each other behind you. Squeeze the shoulder blades together a bit. Forward, up, and back, and make it nice and smooth. Two more. Forward, up, back. All right, now we're going to take this, hopefully relatively released arms, bring them around behind us. If you're like me and you've got really tight shoulders, just getting your arms behind you might be enough. You can grab a wrist like that, or you can lace your fingers together. I'm going to grab my wrist, and I'm holding the wrist that goes with my front leg. So take a nice big breath, and we're going to ease the legs straight and fold in about halfway. Then we're going to ease the knee bent and come on back. Straight, fold in about halfway, bend the knee, come back. Last one, we're going to straighten out the leg and fold. Now we're going to see if we can keep going. And as you fold, you might be able to take your arms up over your head, or if you've got tight shoulders, draw the hands down toward the sacrum and draw the elbows and the shoulder blades towards each other. And then pause there. You can bend the knee a little bit more to take a little bit of pressure away from your hamstrings, or straighten it out more to get more. And again, we're doing kind of movement here that feels nice. And take one more breath. So we're going to release the arms, shake them out, step yourself back into your downward facing dog. Now, you can do one of two things. You can hold the dog, walk it out, feel how that feels, or you can throw in what's called a vinyasa. Vinyasa just means that we've ordered poses in a specific way. You can do a plank, either full or supported. Lower down. Come into a back bend, either a cobra like I'm demonstrating, or you can do a upward dog. Push yourself back to your plank and then take it back to dog. So that's a way to add a little more upper body work and a little more core work to your practice. Now, I'm going to take the right leg up, hook it over, sink through the heel. Oh, give yourself that big stretch. Bring your leg forward. And again, for you, you might be able to step right through the middle. For me, it helps to go out to the outside and then come up. And again, I'm trying to orient my ribs and my chest forward. So I want my hip to go where it goes, but I'm just creating a little bit tighter package here. So the arms are going to go up. Oh, I'm going to bring them back if I don't fall over. Press your feet to the ground, yogis. Up, back, push, up, back, push it forward. One more time, we're going to go up, back, push it forward, and then we're going to wrap around. And again, I'm going to grab the wrist or lace the fingers together. If you lace your fingers together, there's usually one way that we do it. So do it with a different finger on top, and that'll switch it up for you. So I'm going to straighten out the leg and surf forward, bend the knee, surf myself back up, straighten the leg, bring myself forward, bend my knee. Oh, bring it back up. It's harder on this side. Bend it over, surf myself back up. And then I'm going to straighten out that leg and I'm going to come over. Oh. And maybe I keep the knee a little bit more bent or surf between those 2 points. Maybe if you're wobbly, you fall right over. Maybe you can take the hands closer to the sacrum, draw the elbows and the shoulder blades back, let a little more stretch happen there. Last breath, yogis. And then we're going to let go, shake everything out, step it back to dog, and then either follow along here with me and hold the dog, or do that vinyasa sequence, coming forward into your plank. Lower and down, coming into your back bend. Nice big breath. And then come back to dog, and we'll all join up together. So we're going to take the left leg up, and this time we're going to pull the knee in and hug through the belly. Reach it back. Oh, give it a good stretch. Hug it in. Reach it back. Oh, good stretch. Sink into your heel. Hug it in nice and tight. And then if you can softly step it forward, do. You got to use momentum. You got to use momentum. We're going to come to Warrior Two. So Warrior Two points me out to the side a little bit more with the hip. So my back foot might be open a little bit further in relationship to the front foot. I want to find that place there that doesn't cause any trouble. And then rather than trying to square the arms, let them go with your torso. We're going to come back and over. Oh, nice big sort of movements into this reverse warrior and side angle, but not too deep yet. We're just kind of flowing back and forth. Now you're going to find your side angle that works for you. So I'm going to bring my elbow to my thigh. You might put your hand on the floor or even wrap a bind around your legs. And then reach yourself into the shape. Lift through this inner thigh, keeping the feet nice and solid if you can. I'm light on my elbow, so I'm doing the work with my core, but using it to kind of press and lengthen into. And again, you can make this pose a little mobile, exploring the edges. One more big breath. Now we're going to come out of here and come to the diagonal. And once I'm at this diagonal, I'm going to move back and forth. So I'm going to take this back foot and spin it so the toes go the other direction. And then I'm going to ease my way back and ease my way forward. I'm just going to figure out where my knees are cool with this movement. Coming forward. It's almost like a little half squat flow. Just a little bit more of a hybrid. So we're coming forward, and then I'm going to take myself back one last time, let myself fold into here, This knee a little bent, this leg a little more straight. Oh, and then we're going to come on back and take it to downward dog. Adding your vinyasa or holding your dog for a more gentle version. Still not gentle. Dog's a tough pose, y'all. All right, let's do the other side. When you join me from the vinyasa, we'll take this leg up. I'm going to bring it in and round up. Stretch back. Oh, that feels good. Bring it in. Round up. Stretch back. Oh, bring it in. Hold it steady and maybe slip that foot up there nice and soft. Maybe using a little more momentum because it takes that to get it there. And then we're just working over time, trying to develop a little more core strength. Feel your way into this pose in a way that doesn't feel too slippery. And then we'll come back and forth nice and light. Keeping it soft. One more. And then you're gonna find your side angle or your balance, as the case may be, and feel yourself really reach into it. Exploring the edges, the possibilities that this pose gives us. And also feeling like what feels whole or supported by the body rather than necessarily what the rules are. Maybe for you it's better if your hip comes forward more rather than back more. Take a breath. And then we're going to go to this diagonal. So I'm going to move in, let myself kind of flow in here, and then I'm going to adjust this back foot so it feels like my knee is going to be in harmony as I go back and forth. So coming back and forth through this almost kind of squatty action here. One more time. Moving it forward, moving it back, and we're just going to linger at this diagonal, allowing for however much bend in the knee, however much straightness in the other leg seems appropriate. Rinsing out the neck. One more big breath. That feels so good. And then we're going to wander ourselves back, take it back to down dog. Now, pause for just a moment and feel where your practice landed you. Now all of us are going to come forward into the plank, and it can be a full plank. You can even add on by taking a leg up, or you can do the modified plank. So the knees are on the ground, hips are forward, draw up through the navel. So it feels like you're trying to really support the sides of the waist. And then we're going to hug against the elbows, or elbows against the ribs rather, and lower down. Okay, the elbows against the ribs forces you to keep your shoulder blades on your back. You want your shoulder blades on your back, yogis. Okay, so, hold on, let me put this where it'll have a better direction. All right, so we're going to do some cobras here. Put your hands on the floor a little bit further back than your chest muscles, or about lined up with them. Nice big wide fingers, palms pressed down, legs reach back and press down into the ground, and then use your back muscles to lift yourself. So you can do it without the hands. Then you're going to press the hands down, elbows back, and let yourself hold where your cobra comes up. And then we're going to do these little shoulder movements, up and back, one shoulder forward, one shoulder back. You want a little wider hand? Do that. Nice wide shoulders, or really narrow. Come back and forth. All right, so come on down. Windshield wiper your legs a little bit. Release any tension from your low back. And then we're going to come back to a dog, and we're going to bring ourselves into a lunge again. So if you'd rather do this from all fours, you can. Take your left leg up. Nice big stretch. Sink into your right heel. Oh, that feels good. And then we're going to step this left leg forward. Now, this lunge is going to be a little bit different. Let's go. We're going to do a little more of a diagonal lunge. So it's going to turn into a gate pose. So I'm going to bring this knee down, but rather than orient myself forward, I'm going to turn the leg in a little bit. So I orient this more on the diagonal. It's a little strange, but we're going to go in. It's almost like a kneeling warrior two. That might be a better way to describe it. So we're going to go in and then come out, go in and then come out. And then we're going to go in, and again, we're going to take ourselves into this diagonal space and let ourselves get in. And if your hands will go all the way out and let you kind of fall, almost like a puppy dog, you can do that. You can come back to that dolphin position with the elbows on the ground. And you might need to back off and surf in. You might need to put some yoga props in here. Elbows on blocks would be nice if it's too deep. And so we're kind of finding this somewhere in the middle space. All right, so then we're going to come back with the hands, and we're going to turn this into the gate. Now you can stay up on your knee and sideways fold this way, or if it's available to this knee, you can sit yourself all the way down and then let this knee spin out as far as it wants to go. Pull this foot in as tight as it wants to go, and then add your side bend here. Now, I'm a big fan of the shape, and lately it's been one of my favorites because the pelvis is sort of oriented to let my spine really go into this shape. And it's not too harsh on my spine, it's not too harsh on my hips, but it feels really lovely. This may not be true for you. So choosing the version that's appropriate. Oh. So one more breath in the gate. And then if you've come all the way to the ground, we're going to go back to all fours and then back to down dog. If you're still on that knee, you can hopefully step yourself right back into down dog. And if not, come to all fours and then to your dog. You want a vinyasa, you throw that in. All right, we're going to do the other side. So first, just feeling how we landed ourselves. Did that feel appropriate? Take the other leg up. Give that a stretch down into your heel and your calf, and then we'll bring it forward. And again, I'm bringing the knee down and I'm turning it in so that I'm more on a diagonal. Again, maybe it's more like a kneeling warrior two. And coming back. So coming in and coming back and surfing in and surfing back. It feels nice. I like it. Oh. Okay, so we're going to turn ourselves, come in, turn yourself so you're more on the diagonal with your torso, and then let yourself walk your hands out, maybe in kind of a puppy dog, maybe in more of that dolphin shape we did at the beginning with the elbows on the floor. Maybe blocks are in your life. Stretching it out, moving as it seems appropriate. Again, so in this half, we're exploring this idea of movement without being too harsh. Okay. Definitely the puppy dog. Last breath here. And then you can stand up, shift the hip so that this leg is straight, fold yourself into your gate pose that way, or sit this whole thing down. Adjust this leg, adjust your spine and your side waist, and choose your gate pose this way. Oh. Allowing yourself some movement in the neck or the shoulder, or a little movement forward or back depending on which version of the gate you're up to. Oh, so you can take it back to child's pose. Take a big breath, bring yourself up, And if you're doing this kneeling gait, you might want to go back to child's pose for a moment. If you're doing this seated gait, bring your back leg around, and we'll just take a moment to pause. Oh, give it a little side to side wobble. You want an extra vinyasa? Throw that in. Now, we're going to come to one of two forward bending shapes. So the first option is legs are close together. Actually, there might be three options. I'll give you a third option. The second option is legs are wide apart like a V. Okay. For some of us, that makes the pelvis go backwards. For some of it, all of this makes the pelvis go backwards. And again, sitting up on the edge of a blanket or a pillow and then getting right to the edge is helpful. The other possibility is somewhere in between. So the legs are not close together. The legs are not as wide apart. There's just some space. And this is a nice place. I'm going to go with this one. Okay. So tilt your pelvis forward as far as it will go, and then rock your sit bones out from underneath you a little bit. And then see if your pelvis will go forward more. I'm basically resting on my thighs here, so that's as far as I'm going to get. The only possibility is that I could potentially, like make a little bit more space by adjusting the tissue on my body. You may want to add some props up under the knees to create a little bend in the knee. That may give you a little bit more motion forward, or again, elevation. If you can grab hold of your toes or your sides of your feet, fine. If you can't and you have a belt or a dog leash or a yoga strap handy, you can wrap that around your feet. So we're going to push on the hands and we're going to draw some length into the spine. So if we were doing this in a yin way, it would be that super soft, relaxed pose. In the yang version, we're allowing ourselves to become a little more active with the stretch. So I'm drawing my abdominal muscles in, almost like I'm going to zip up a really tight pair of pants that go all the way to my nipples. So I'm pulling in through the sides of my waist, pressing out through my feet. A slight bend in my knee is very helpful here. And trying to create length so that my spine feels like it's extending out at the appropriate angle for me, given the tilt of my pelvis. Hopefully that makes sense. So if my pelvis were tilted forward more, my spine might be more out here. If my pelvis were tilted up more, my spine might be going that direction. So it's whatever the version is for you. So what helps is kind of having some resistance, but you don't have to have it. You can use your calves for that same amount of resistance. Okay, 2 more breaths. Last one here. So we're going to release, come on up, give ourselves a little wiggle. So when I do this pose as a yin pose where it's really soft, it's all about like a soft kind of gentle movement in my back. With that shape, there's a lot more sensation for me around the hamstrings, around the back of the pelvis, just some interesting places. Nothing hurts, so that usually is good, but it feels interesting. So we're going to do a twist. You're going to pick this left leg up and bring the knee in. Now, some people can bring their heel really close to their buttock. And if your body will do that, you can really squeeze that thing in. We're going to leave this leg long. You can, if you want to, cross the leg over. I leave it out here. We're going to sit up tall, lean back so that you can get that length in your spine. Rotate, and if you want to put your arm on the outside of your leg, you can. And then once you get your arm in place, you're going to sit up taller, okay? Now that we're sitting up taller, we're going to turn that leg on that's out there in the front. So rather than let it get floppy, we're going to turn the toes up, bend that knee slightly, draw the abdominal muscles towards the center line a little bit so that we're nice and tall and regal. Then you can turn your head and look over. Letting the head drop back stretches this territory right here, which there's some lymphatic drainage that helps the lymphatic drainage there. You could also turn your head the other way and let that side fall back. So just kind of give and it just feels like a stretch in the skin. It doesn't feel like we're trying to pull hard on the muscle. Draw this leg toward you, resist by pushing into your hand. 2 more breaths here. The sun has come out and it's right on my eyeballs. It makes rainbows happen in my lids. 1 more big breath. And then we're going to let ourselves come around. We're going to let this leg fall open. And again, we're going to kind of adjust the pelvis. So I bring in this leg back. Now this for me is a stretch for the shoulder in addition to the hip work. So I'm going to reach across with my arm. Maybe I could hold my foot. I'm going to hold my calf muscle. I'm going to fold towards this leg, and then I'm going to turn my body slightly in towards the inner thigh while I bring this elbow out. Now for me, what this does is it sort of pulls a nice tractioning stretch in the shoulder area, and especially up under my shoulder blade, right there in the middle of my back. I don't want to be so aggressive with it that it starts to hurt, but it feels so nice to kind of take that elbow out and get that sort of long pull, releasing those upper back muscles. Again, this leg is turned on. I'm lifting out. I'm hugging in with my core a little bit. Everything's active. That's the yang principle. Last big breath here. And then we're going to gently release the shape. Come on up. Oh, and then rinse out. So we're going to straighten out this leg. What I mean by rinse out is move, pandiculate. So when you watch an animal stretch, they stretch, stick out their tongue, pull their ears back, and then they go like this. And even my little tiny creatures around my house, they do what I call flat weasel, where they lay themselves really flat on the floor, and then they do weasel locust, where they reach through their arms and reach through their legs, and their tail curls up over their back like a little sphinx, or I mean like a little scorpion. And they stick their tongue out. And then when they're done with that, they go and shake their bodies. And that actually has a name. It's called pandiculation, where you stretch and then you kind of jiggle and then you pause. And it's really lovely. Okay, so we're going to do the other leg. So you bring your right leg in, sit up nice and tall, lean back, okay? So that leaning back lets you get the length in your spine, so that as you twist around, if you want to get your elbow to the outside of your leg, you can do it that way. Once you're twisted, you're going to bring yourself back up onto the tips of your sit bones. Sit up tall, turn that leg on. And then this arm might be in the back to help you stay regal. Look over the back shoulder, look over the front shoulder, and maybe add that little extra lymphatic drainage. There's lymph nodes that live right in here above the eyebrow and right over here above under the cheekbone. And they drain out and down the side of the neck right there, right under the layer of superficial fascia beneath the skin. And so it's not a big movement. You don't have to go crazy with your neck. It's just letting a little bit of sensation, like a little stretchy skin right there. Might help that lymph move around. So they're big ducts up here near the collarbones and the armpits, that if you get your lymph to flow nice and freely into those places, it gets cleaned out. Oh, the body's amazing. All right, so we're going to drop this leg open. And again, I'm going to pull the sit bone back after you come out of your twist. Oh. All right, here we go. We're going to fold. And again, I'm going to rock my sit bone. I'm reaching across, turning my chest towards the thigh, and then pulling out with the elbow. Just enough to feel that sort of feeling through my upper back. If it starts to go into my jaw, I should back off a little bit. Oh, that's nice. Breathe. And again, even if my toes need to turn that way a little bit, I'm still activating my leg. Oh. Adding some movement to keep the neck free of tension. All that good jazz. Okay, yogis, one more breath. So you're going to release. We're going to come up. We're going to shake this out. Oh. Before we do Shavasana, we're going to do one of my favorite poses. It's probably your favorite pose too. The boat. We're going to do a little boat pose. So you can do your boat pose any way you like. The best starting point for a boat is to start by bringing the feet to the floor, knees in the air, and then you're going to lift so that it's like you're making space between your breastbone and your belly button. And then you're going to really firmly pull in through the sides of the waist and lift the legs, okay? And then if you can let go of the legs, let go of the legs. If your toes need to stay down, you can keep your toes down. You can bring your legs up straight. I love to either hold onto my ankles or my big toes, lift nice and firm, and then take the legs out straight. It just feels really fun. So I can press into my hands. I can squeeze through my abs, kind of hugging in like I'm putting on that tight pair of leather pants. Ooh, take it out wider. Maybe let go and try to hold it. Oh. Friends, the boat pose is good. So we are at the point now where we're going to let ourselves relax a little bit. So we're going to start by lying down on the mat. I'm going to go this way. And if you have a few yoga props handy, I'm going to use these pillows because I had those earlier. You can make a little place for your legs to lay. Now, before we get to all of this, we're going to do a little love on the back. So scooch down, put your pillows or your blanket or whatever you've got, if you're going to use it, somewhere nearby. And then make sure that the back of your head can lay on the floor nice. And then you're going to bring your knees in and rock a little bit. We're going to do what's called happy baby pose. Now, this is not the most attractive yoga pose on the planet Earth, but it feels amazing. So if you can do it, you're going to grab the sole of your foot like that. If that's too far away, hold on to the ankle or even just wrap the hand through the leg like that. You just want weight in the legs, okay? So I'm letting the arms hang. So the weight of the arms pulls. Now my tailbone wants to come up off the floor. What I'm going to do is try to put it back down. And what I'm really doing is this part of my spine right here called the sacrum, I'm trying to put that on the ground. So once the sacrum is planted, there's this really lovely sensation of release around that low back. It's not as much fun for me if the pelvis is curled. So again, let go of the legs if you have to, so that you can get your sacrum down, because that's the key, man. That's why this is a good pose. And then you can do this little like leg play. Oh, just to create a little release around that sacrum. All right, so take one leg, stretch it out nice and long. Let it rest over the pillow or on the floor. Take this other leg, stretch it out really long, and then let it rest. Adjust your pelvis, adjust your shoulder blades. I like the arms to go out nice and wide, sometimes even almost like a cactus, like that, like bent, sometimes like a big starfish. So you get to decide. What you're looking for is the sense that your chest and shoulders are completely relaxed and the arms can soften. Okay, so once you've got your legs adjusted, you got your upper back, your shoulders, and your arms adjusted. Now the last part is just to adjust your brain, your mind. So we're going to it's almost like imagine in your mind's eye that you let your whole brain just release from the front of the skull and let it settle into the back. It's probably not really happening. It's just a trick, but that's fine. It works. Let your brain settle backwards. Just give yourself a little bit of space in that frontal lobe. And then with the space you just made, let your eyes get heavier in the sockets. So your eyes feel like they're deep and soft. Relax the temples, the muscle that lives right above the ear, the cheekbones. Let all that soften. Let your lips get fluffy. Sometimes I have to go to release tension from the mouth. And you might have thinner lips, but you let your lips get as fluffy as they'll get. Nice and soft. Let the jaw be relaxed. Feel that relaxation extend out through the collarbones and out through the arms. Down the spine, through the pelvis, out through the legs. Whole body relaxed. Now here's the good news, yogis. Really, you can stay here as long as you like. No one's going to stop. Well, some people may stop you. You might have tiny pets or tiny humans or teenage humans who are going to wake up soon and will disturb your practice. But if you want to stay longer, you can stay. And then if you're ready to kind of move on with your morning, you're going to take a nice big long stretch. We're going to give the fingers and toes a little wriggle. You're going to stretch again, out through the fingers, out through the toes, out through the arms, out through the legs. Maybe a banana going in one direction, a banana going the other direction. And then bring your knees back in and give yourself one more time just a little hug. It's good to hug your favorite yogi every day. A little back massage. Now you can rock yourself up. My favorite way is to roll to the side. Oh, hello, sweet girl. Take one more breath here. And then you're going to bring yourself up to a seated position. Now, this is my favorite time to do meditation, is right after I practice, because my mind and my body are already there. And so I might take a few more moments, 5, 10, 20, however long I've got, and just pause and be present with the afterglow of my practice. So I invite you to that. If it's going to be our last moments with each other today, then I want to just say thank you so much for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your day. Namaste, yogis.